I became a legend in my wife's company by being a stay-at-home dad. My wife, the Ice Queen CEO, rules the business world with an iron will, and me, I'm the super dad behind the throne. A rival firm thought they could break us. They hired her college sweetheart, the one that got away as their new VP, hoping to shatter our marriage. He sent her a gift, that fancy star projector she'd always wanted. I sneered, a pacifier dangling from my lips. "Funny," I said. "Last night you were complaining in your sleep about his terrible taste," when that ghost from her past tried to flash our divorce agreement at a board meeting. The big screen cut to something else, a live feed from a preschool. There I was, a baby bottle in one hand and a PowerPoint clicker in the other, teaching our 3-year-old daughter how to chart the rival company's bankruptcy using Legos. My wife smirked at the stunned shareholders. "I'd like to introduce the newest director of our crisis management division," she said. My daughter's father is 7 a.m. sharp in the heart of Manhattan's financial district, inside the penthouse office of Apex Global Tower. An office with a view of half the city. Claire Sterling had already signed off on her third major proposal of the day. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden halo around her. But it did nothing to melt the frost. In her eyes, her fingers flew across her tablet, scrolling through rivers of financial data pulsing with Wall Street's fury. Then her phone vibrated softly on the mahogany desk. A photo appeared on the screen. A chubby little hand Tradon failed to guide a spoonful of green mush into a pink, cherubic face. A half-spilled sippy cup of milk lay next to the bowl. And in the background, a blurry figure in a pink dinosaur onesie was visible from the waist down. Above the photo, a message: "Mission update for the CEO. Strategic deployment of nutritional assets. Oatmeal met with tactical resistance, but the objective has been secured. Enemy combatant Penny reports stable morale and is plotting a new domestic deconstruction campaign. Requesting morale boost from HQ." Claire's finger hovered over the photo. For a moment, the frost cracked. The corner of her mouth lifted into the faintest smiles, so subtle it could have been imagined. But the atmosphere in the office warmed, if only by a degree. She typed a single-word reply: approved. Then, after a pause, she added, "Proceed with caution. Do not be compromised by the combatant's primary weapon, cuteness overload." Setting her phone down, she took a sip of perfectly tempered black coffee and returned to her spreadsheets. But the warmth lingered in her eyes. To the world, she was Claire Sterling, CEO of Apex Global, the Ice Queen of Finance. What no one knew was that the softest part of her heart belonged to a man named Ethan and a little tyrant named Penny. Meanwhile, across the city, in a living room bursting with colors, cartoon clouds, and rainbow walls, another battle was underway. "Penny, that is Daddy's slipper, not a chew toy. Drop it." Ethan Crawford dove to rescue his poor shoe, clenched in the jaws of his daughter, who dragged it proudly toward her secret hoard, a plastic bin lined with a soft blanket. 3-year-old Penny K, the Tyrannosaurus Rexin, her pink and green striped dinosaur onesie, roared in defiance. Her little bottom wiggled as she made fierce gurgling noises, proof that her Tyrannosaurus lineage was strong. Her big, grape-dark eyes gleamed with mischief as she completely ignored her father's pleas, crawling faster with her beloved prize. Ethan lunged and missed, nearly planting his face on the playmat. Pushing himself back up, he watched as his daughter solemnly tucked the slipper into her plastic bin. She patted it for good measure, her look saying loud and clear, "This property now belongs to the dinosaur." He wiped his brow, exhaling a long breath. This was more exhausting than his college mile test. Fine. It was just a slipper. His wife wouldn't be mad, probably. "Okay, my tiny overlord, the slipper is yours. But can we negotiate the return of Daddy's glasses?" He rearranged his face into the most charming smile he could muster and approached her hoard, attempting a peaceful parley. Without his glasses, the world was nothing but a high-def blur of abstract art. Penny tilted her head, considering the other prize in her bin, her father's sad-looking black frames. She picked them up with her chubby fingers, Ethan watching with desperate hope. Then, with decisive authority, She stuffed them into the front pocket of her dinosaur onesie. 2 little pats sealed the deal. Secure. Ethan stared in disbelief. His daughter had the makings of a world-class secret agent. Squinting, resigned, he stumbled toward the couch and collapsed. Pulling out his phone, he'd brought up the live feeds from the high-def security cameras he'd installed throughout the house. It was time for a little game of I Spy My Own Freaking Glasses. The screen showed the living room, the bedroom, the play area in perfect detail. He'd convinced Claire to let him install the system only after signing a series of deeply unfavorable domestic treaties, lifetime dish duty, and a solemn vow to achieve a six-pack she could use as a washboard. The abs, by the way, were still pending. Officially, the cameras were a safety measure for their daughter. Unofficially, they were an indispensable tool for a severely nearsighted father trying to locate stolen property after his daughter's latest heist. He swiped to the kitchen feed. His eyes lit up. There, perched inside an empty Play-Doh container on the island, sat a familiar black-framed object. She must have stashed it there during her morning sculpting session. Got it. Triumph surged through him. He immediately texted Claire. Update for the Queen. Strategic visual enhancement device located. Coordinates. Kitchen Island. Play-Doh box. Questing immediate promotion to Special Agent of Domestic Ops. His phone rang barely 2 seconds later. The screen glowed. The Queen. Ethan answered instantly, his face falling into perfect husband mode, his voice sweet enough to give a hummingbird cavities. Hey, Your Majesty. To what do I owe the honor? Your humble servant awaits your command. Ignored his disheveled. State shirt askew, hair a mess courtesy of Penny. On the other end. Claire's cool voice came through, carrying that subtle mix of fatigue and warmth. You found them? Found him? Ethan reported proudly. They were hiding out. In the Play-Doh box in the kitchen? This little monster's hiding spots are getting way too clever. Good. Claire paused, and the warmth in her voice seemed to grow. What do you want for dinner? I'll have Maria start prepping. You've had a long day. You deserve something good, I was thinking, Ethan began, ready to list her favorites. But then, cutting through her end of the line, came a smooth, unfamiliar male voice. Claire, this proposal for the Horizon Tech merger, there are a few details. I think we need to hammer out, especially the firewall. They seem to be holding something back. Do you have a few minutes to discuss? Ethan froze. His words died in his throat. That voice, polite, confident, with a faintly familiar edge. Who was that? On the other end. Claire's tone shifted instantly, snapping back to her professional, icy default. As if the warmth Ethan had heard moments before had been nothing but an illusion. I see. One moment. There was a muffled sound as though she had covered the receiver. Then her voice clipped and distant. I'll call you back. Some things. Come up! The line went dead. The dial tone buzzed in Ethan's ear. He stayed frozen, phone still pressed against his face. The joy of finding his glasses evaporated, replaced with a sharp, hollow ache. That voice had slipped in like a needle under the skin. Familiar, polished, too familiar. He frowned, digging through the dusty corners of memory until a name surfaced. Julian Vance, Claire's college sweetheart. The legendary one who got away. The man who, on the eve of graduation, had bolted overseas for a prestigious opportunity, leaving Claire to face a massive family crisis alone. Ethan's chest tightened as if an invisible hand had clenched around his heart. He shot up from the couch, forgetting about the glasses entirely, and squinted his way to the study. His laptop flickered to life, the screen a blurry mess, but his fingers navigated by muscle memory, he typed, Apex Global, new executive VP. The page loaded slowly. He leaned in, face nearly pressed to the glass. Finally, a headline came into focus. Apex Global welcomes new VP. Silicon Valley veteran Julian Vance joins to spearhead global expansion. The accompanying photo was sharp. Claire poised in a crisp white power suit, her expression cool and untouchable. And half a step behind her Julian. Vance, handsome, polished, his dark suit perfectly tailored, his smile practiced. His body angled toward her with a subtle lean, as if even in the photo, he belonged at her side. Ethan's fingers curled into fists. He could still hear that familiar, easy tone. "Claire, do you have a few minutes?" Cold, coiling unease wrapped itself around him. This wasn't just a hire, it was a move. A low blow from the rival firm. Days later, the city sky burned orange with sunset. Ethan gently laid Penny in her crib, her little mouth slightly open as she slept against her dinosaur print blanket. He tiptoed from the nursery. The apartment was quiet. Claire still wasn't. Home lately? She had been especially busy. Then came the soft, electronic chime of the lock. Ethan looked up as Claire entered. Fatigue etched deep into her face, casting faint shadows beneath her eyes. She dropped her designer handbag onto the console table, kicked off her heels, and patted across the rug like a bird too tired to fly. "You're back late tonight," Ethan said softly, moving to help her shrug off her trench coat. The familiar cool scent of high-rise offices clung to her, mingling with the fragrance she always wore. "Long meeting," she murmured, rubbing her temples. She walked straight to the couch and sank down, closing her eyes as if she had no energy left for words. The suspicion gnawed at Ethan, but his heart ached more for her exhaustion. He slipped into the kitchen, turning with a steaming mug of honey ginger tea, placing it gently on the coffee table. "Drink this, it'll help your throat." Claire opened her eyes, her gaze softening as she looked at the cup. She picked it up, took a small sip, and let out a quiet sigh as the warmth slid down her throat. "Penny asleep?" she asked, instinctively glancing toward the nursery. "Just went down. Nearly turned the sofa into a trampoline first," Ethan said with a small smile, settling beside her. He reached out, his fingers moving in steady, practiced circles as he massaged her temples. Claire sighed again, her tense shoulders easing. The room glowed with soft lamplight, as the air smelled faintly of ginger, wrapped in the peace of home. Ethan was just summoning the courage to bring up Julian when Claire's phone lit up on the coffee table. A message flashed across the screen. "Julian Vance? Claire? I noticed you barely touched your food tonight. Is your stomach acting up again? I remember you used to have that problem." Ethan's hand stilled against her temple. The quiet warmth of the evening shattered like glass. "I had a friend bring some medicine back from Europe. It works wonders. Left it in your desk drawer. Make sure you take it." Ethan's fingers paused mid-massage, just for a fraction of a second. His eyes flicked to the message, each word catching on the most sensitive nerve in his body like tiny, sharp hooks. The concerned caretaker routine, an old, tired playbook. But damn if it wasn't effective. Claire had seen it too. Her brow furrowed, barely noticeable, but she didn't reach for her phone. Instead, she took another sip of tea and said flatly, "It came up at the client dinner. I didn't think he'd remember." She set the mug down and turned to Ethan, her gaze steady, direct. "I didn't touch the medicine. I'll have my assistant get rid of it tomorrow." Ethan said nothing. His hands resumed their steady rhythm at her temples, his smile still gentle. But in his eyes, a cold ripple spread. He leaned close, his breath warm against her ear, his voice low and magnetic. "Sweetheart, does he really think he can win you back with a box of antacids?" His lips curled into a smirk. "Seriously less creative than that star projector. He bought you in college?" Claire turned her head, meeting his gaze. She snorted. "Expensive? Sure. But what good is expensive?" The motor sounded like a lawnmower, and the stars were so blurry you saw double. Exactly. Ethan grinned, nodding with exaggerated devotion. "My wife is always right." Then his tone shifted, sly and teasing. "But you know what? You were saying in your sleep last night?" Her eyebrow arched. "Oh, and what did I say?" Ethan cleared his throat, and, in a perfect imitation of her cool, crisp voice, declared, "Julian, this projector? What is this for 8OP? My daughter's finger paintings have better resolution." Claire stared at him, then burst out laughing. The dark cloud of her workday, Julian's text evaporated. She smacked his arm playfully. "You're making that up. Since when do I talk in my sleep?" "I swear on a stack of diapers," Ethan said solemnly, clutching his arm as if mortally wounded. "Your sleep talk is legendary. I'm just the faithful scribe." "Quiet, you," Claire laughed, cutting him off before he could continue. Her fatigue melted, replaced with a rare warm smile. She leaned into his arms, nestling against him. "Stop it. I know what he's doing. He can't make waves." Ethan held her close, resting his chin on her head, feeling the trust in her embrace. His voice was calm, certain. "Waves. He's barely a ripple. This ocean hour's rock solid." But the peace didn't last. Julian's next move came faster, sharper, more precise than Ethan anticipated. He'd stopped trying to reach Claire directly. Instead, he took a more insidious route, attacking Ethan's identity as a stay-at-home dad. Began with whispers, manufactured gossip, perfectly aimed. The first photo appeared. Ethan at the preschool gates, a dinosaur print. Diaper bag slung over his shoulder, holding Penny's hand in one and a pink water bottle in the other. The angle was damning, capturing him mid-conversation with a stylish young mother and her designer-clad son. Deliberately framed to look like he was flirting, another photo followed. Ethan sitting at a table outside an upscale family restaurant, laptop open, eyes fixed on the screen. A group of mothers sat nearby, one of them smiling in his direction. The photo once again framed to suggest more than there was. The pictures spread quickly, slipping into Apex Global's anonymous Slack channels and private chats, paired with captions sharp enough to cut. "Wow, looks like the CEO's better half has a pretty active social life. Making new friends at preschool pickup photo, and still networking at the kid-friendly cafe. Guess childcare is just a side hustle photo. No wonder the CEO works herself to the bone. Her husband has plenty of energy. Didn't he used to be just some 9 to 5? It looks like he's really enjoying the kept man lifestyle." The rumors spread like a virus. From whispers near the coffee machine to pointed glances in the elevator. From casual asides to thinly veiled concerns in public settings. During a break in a board meeting, one of the older members leaned toward Claire, his voice dripping with feigned concern. "Claire, there's been some unfortunate chatter around the office about your husband." His eyes, however, were sharp, probing, testing. Claire's pen never stopped moving across the document she was signing. She didn't even look up. Her voice was cold, unyielding. "Mr. Davis, stick to your own department. My family is not your concern." The board member flushed and retreated, chastened. Julian, the new hire who always seemed too attentive, had heard the rumors. And instead of stopping them, he fanned the flames with skillful precision. At a small dinner for senior management, someone emboldened by wine finally asked the question that hung in the air. "Julian, you're from the Valley. You've seen it all. Like common for men like Mr. Sterling." The focus entirely on the home. The implication was sharp, the laughter uneasy. Julian swirled his red wine with polished grace. His expression refined, yet tinged with a sorrowful smile. "You see stay-at-home dads, of course, but it's not the norm. Most couples share the load. A man's drive, his career, his potential, that's a powerful thing." He paused, lowering his tone to something that sounded almost sincere. "Of course, every choice deserves respect. It's just that Claire, as CEO, carries so much on her shoulders. Perhaps things would be easier if she had a partner who could truly stand with her. Shoulder to shoulder." The phrase, delivered with perfect neutrality, was lethal. His words dripped with suggestion. Ethan wasn't just different, he was unworthy. The air at the table grew tight with discomfort. A few exchanged glances, the poison had landed. In time, the rumors, wrapped in Julian's polished delivery, reached Ethan. Amy, one of Claire's fiercely loyal assistants, couldn't keep quiet. She called him, her voice sharp with anger. "Ethan, it's awful what they're saying, and what Mr. Vance said is calculated." The CEO shut them down. "In the meeting? But people won't stop. They're jealous of you and Ms. Sterling." Ethan sat on the floor with Penny, piecing together a massive dinosaur puzzle. He listened without interrupting, his face calm, but the hand holding the T-Rex piece tightened until his knuckles turned white. "Yeah, I got it." "Thanks, Amy," he said lightly, his voice almost cheerful. "Don't worry about it. Just a few flies buzzing around. Keep an eye on your boss. Don't let it get to her." When he hung up, Penny looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Daddy, who's buzzing?" Ethan's anger dissolved instantly. He ruffled her hair, smiling warmly. "It's nothing, sweetheart. It's just a few annoying gnats." Daddy's about to swat them. He pressed the T-Rex piece into place. The dinosaur's image was ferocious, ready to strike, and in Ethan's eyes, a new sharpness glinted. So, Julian, you want to play games? Use my role as a father to humiliate me? Drive a wedge between me and Claire. Fine, let's play. You'll learn soon enough just how much strength it takes to raise a 3-year-old Tyrannosaurus and run a household like a fortress. Days later, in the penthouse office of Apex Global, the heavy oak door shut out the world. Claire stood at the window, her silhouette rigid against the sweep of glittering city lights. On her desk lay a single document. Bold black letters on the cover, cut like knives. Divorce agreement. Julian Vance stood nearby, every detail of his appearance precise, his suit flawless. His expression artfully softened with concern. A knight, ready to rescue his queen? Claire, he began, his voice low, magnetic, thick with sincerity. I know this is a terrible time, but I can't stand by and watch you suffer. He gestured toward the papers, then held up his phone, displaying a blurry photo of Ethan with another mother. The rumors are everywhere. It's starting to hurt the company's image. Shareholders are restless. You saw how Mr. Davis and the others reacted today. He stepped closer, lowering his tone to something more intimate. Ethan, he's a good man, but he's ordinary. He can't understand your world. He can't carry your burdens. He may not even be able to give Penny the future she deserves. This agreement, he gestured to the document, his voice coaxing. I had the best lawyers prepare it. It will protect you and Penny. If you sign it, all of this, the rumors, the doubts will disappear. Okay, his words were sugar-coated venom. Apex needs a leader without weaknesses, and you. His eyes softened, his tone tender. You deserve a partner who can truly stand with you. He hinted at Ethan's inadequacy, the damage of the gossip, the pressure from the board, and dangled the bait of a partner who could be her equal. Every word was a calculated strike at Claire's deepest anxieties. Claire turned around slowly. The cold white light from the overhead fixtures carved her features into sharp relief, making the chill in her eyes seem almost tangible. Her face was a mask of ice, emotionless, unreadable. She walked toward the desk, each click of her heels on the marble floor cutting through the silence. Echoing in Julian's suddenly racing heart, she stopped in front of the desk, her gaze falling on the 5 glaring words of the document's title. Julian's breath caught in his throat. He held it there, watching as she reached out, her long, elegant fingers brushing the edge of the document. This was it. Triumph surged through him, nearly breaking through his carefully composed facade. But Claire didn't open the file. Simply nudged it forward with her fingertips, pushing it to the very edge of the desk as if it were nothing more than dust. One corner dangled precariously over the abyss. Then she lifted her eyes to meet his. Her gaze was glacial, sharp, filled with a mocking pity, the kind one reserves for a pitiful clown who doesn't know when the performance is over. Julian. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like a shard of ice. You haven't changed? Your methods are still so predictable. So cheap. The suave smile on Julian's face faltered, cracking like a broken mask. His pupils shrank in disbelief.
Ow.
You thought a few blurry photos and boardroom whispers could shake me? Claire tilted her head slightly, a cold smile flickering at her lips, thin and sharp as light, glinting off a glacier. Or did you think this pathetic piece of garbage you had drawn up could make me abandon my husband, my daughter's father? Claire, you're misunderstanding me. I'm doing this for you, Julian stammered, his voice strained, the last threads of composure unraveling. For me? Claire let out the faintest laugh, a sound laced with icy amusement. Save it. The man I chose is not for you to judge. I know who he is better than you ever could. She stepped closer. Her presence was overwhelming, pressing down on him with invisible weight until his chest tightened and his breath grew shallow. And as for you, Mr. Vice President? The way she lingered on his title dripped with contempt. You will stick to your own duties. And if you ever dare to reach for what isn't yours again. She left the words unfinished, but her eyes, cold and cutting as twin blades traveled slowly across his face. Julian's complexion drained. A cold sweat prickled down his spine. His brilliant plan, his perfect checkmate, had disintegrated into dust before her unshakable trust and glacial disdain. His throat tightened, dry and useless, as the humiliation crashed over him in waves. He was utterly exposed, and then bling. Claire's phone lit up on the desk. A message from Domestic Ops. "Hey, Queen. Is the summit over? Commander Penny is threatening a full-scale demolition of her pillow fort." Image attached. The photo showed a toddler in a dinosaur onesie defiantly gnawing on a pillow. "Awaiting your return for a critical debrief. P.S. requesting your famous slow-cooked barbecue ribs for dinner tonight." Puppy dog eyes. GIF. The text was followed by a string of chubby, animated dinosaur emojis. A suffocating chill in the room melted away in an instant. Claire glanced down at the screen, and a tiny, almost imperceptible smile unfurled across her lips. It began in her eyes, then softened her entire face, like the first warmth of spring breaking through winter's frost. It was faint, but it was real. It transformed her, revealing the warmth of a wife and mother beneath the ice. That simple smile was the final crushing blow. Julian's heart sank as he watched the warmth bloom across her features. Compared to that glow of quiet love, his entire performance was nothing but a pathetic sham. Rage and humiliation boiled inside him, burning away the last of his poise. His face flushed from white to green to an ugly, blotchy red. He tried to speak, but no words came. His breath hitched. And then, abandoning what little pride he had left, he turned and stumbled out of the office. His retreat graceless and desperate. The heavy oak door slammed shut behind him, cutting off the sound of his flight. Silence settled once more. Claire picked up her phone and tapped a quick reply to the silly dinosaur emojis. "Just exterminated a cockroach. Ribs are a go. TA 30 minutes." She set the phone down, her gaze falling on the divorce agreement still hanging on the edge of her desk. Her eyes hardened, cold and merciless. Without hesitation, she swept the file into the shredder. The machine whirred to life, its blades devouring the papers, reducing Julian's scheme to 1,000 insignificant scraps. Garbage belonged in the trash. After storming out of the CEO's office, Julian Vance didn't return to his own. Instead, he charged down the hall toward a door marked security and surveillance on the far side of the building. Officially, it was just another wing of the administration department. In truth, the men inside had long been bought off by Apex Global's rivals, paid through a slush fund that made their loyalty unshakable. The room was dim, lit only by the cold blue glow of surveillance monitors. A few men in Apex uniforms lounged at the consoles, laughing quietly, their eyes shifty, their manner more thuggish than professional. But their laughter died the instant Julian burst through the door. His face was twisted with fury, and the heat in his eyes made them snap to attention. "Vance," the leader greeted cautiously a buzz-cut enforcer with a thin scar carved across his cheek. Julian yanked angrily at his tie, his chest rising and falling in furious heaves. His polished charm was gone. In its place stood a man stripped to raw desperation, the ugly menace of a cornered animal. "We're moving up the timeline," he growled. "Claire won't break. Her husband is the weak link. Plan B, grab the kid. Do it now." Scar hesitated. "Mr. Vance, isn't that rushing it? Guy's only just mapped out the girl's routine." "Shut up." "Shh," Julian roared, his bloodshot eyes flashing. "I said now. Once we have the kid, Claire will crawl, and that stay-at-home loser of hers will fold in seconds. Do this, and I'll get you out of the country with every last cent you're owed." The humiliation Claire had dealt him had snapped something. Inside, now all Julian wanted was victory, no matter how brutal the means. Kidnap Penny, break Ethan, force Claire to her knees. Scar exchanged a look with his crew. Their eyes glinted with greed, and beneath it, the ruthless excitement of men who lived for high-risk, high-reward jobs. Scar gave a sharp nod. "Got it, Mr. Vance Monkey." Pull the preschool feed. Hammer, fire up the van, same pickup spot. The rest of you with me. Move. Baseball caps and face masks went on. Duffel bags filled with rope, duct tape, and chloroform were slung over. shoulders, like hyenas closing in. They slipped out through a service exit and headed straight for the private preschool where Penny spent her afternoons. Julian stayed behind in the shadowed control room, his eyes locked on a single monitor displaying the school's exterior. His breath came in jagged bursts, his fists clenched so tightly his nails dug into his palms. Everything his pride, his revenge, his very sanity now hinged on this. Back in Apex Global's penthouse, Claire had just finished feeding the shredded remains of her divorce agreement into the machine when her encrypted phone buzzed violently. It wasn't a call. It was a request for a secure video link. Her eyes narrowed as she accepted. The screen remained black. Distorted, genderless voice crackled through, sharp and rapid. The Nest reports an anomaly. Authorized signal detected at the preschool perimeter. Security Team C is off trajectory compromised. Probability of hostile action high. Little Dinosaur is at extreme risk. Recommend immediate activation of Guardian Protocol. Claire's hand tightened around the phone until her knuckles whitened. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet as murderous rage radiated from her. Julian? He wouldn't dare. Without hesitation, she slammed a red icon, opening a direct emergency line. Ethan? She barked, her voice sharp as a blade. Penny's in danger. They're at the preschool. Activate Guardian now.
Ow.
East side of the city stood Starlight Academy, a fortress disguised as a preschool. High tuition, higher security. It was 4 p.m, and the playground rang with the laughter of children under the golden sun. Swings creaked, slides echoed with squeals, and sandboxes became kingdoms. In one corner, Penny clad in her beloved pink-canned green dinosaur. Once he was utterly absorbed in digging a deep hole, lining it with rubber balls she called dinosaur eggs. The walls surrounding her were tall, crowned with cameras and electronic fencing. Guards paced steadily near the entrance. Everything looked calm. But in a shadowed alley behind the school, a gray van waited, its engine silent. Scar and 3 masked men crouched near the rear service gate, their eyes locked on their prize. Monkey cameras? Scar whispered. All set, came the reply in his earpiece. Loops running. Security's watching yesterday's feed. We're invisible. Good. Scar's lips curled into a grin. Hammer jam the signal. The rest, on me. Target is the girl in the green dinosaur suit. In and out chloroform, van gone. No mistakes. With a subtle hand signal, they moved. Shadows in daylight, slipping to the gate. A small device killed the electronic lock with a faint crackle. A second man bent low, tools working fast, until the heavy lock clicked open, the gate creaked. Scar slipped inside. His gaze swept the playground and fixed instantly on a tiny figure in pink and green, happily crouched in the sandbox. Go, he hissed. 4 men charged, moving with terrifying speed toward the sandpit. In the sandbox, Penny had just finished her dinosaur nest. Clapping her little hands in delight, ready to place her eggs inside, then she sensed it movement. She looked up, her wide, dark eyes full of innocent confusion. Strange masked man was rushing toward her. She froze, lips parting as if to call for her teacher. Scar was in the lead, a predatory grin splitting his face. His rough hand shot out, aiming for Penny's tiny arm. Again his other fist pressed Tita chloroform-soaked rag. Almost there. This kid was his ticket to a new life. But in that instant, a heavy, dull thud like a sack of bricks exploded at Scar's feet. It wasn't a gunshot. It was a duffel bag, huge, stuffed to bursting. It had fallen from the sky and slammed into the ground less than 2 feet in front of him, kicking up a cloud of dust. The zipper had torn open on impact. Its contents spilled everywhere. Scar and his men stared, dumbfounded, not weapons. Not traps, but toys. A mountain of mismatched, brightly colored plastic toys, broken action figures, toy cars with missing wheels. Dinosaur models with snarling faces, even filthy, well-loved stuffed animals. A few rubber balls bounced away playfully, as if mocking them. For the first time, the 4 hardened criminals faltered. What the hell was happening? Wow, Daddy, there's monsters. A terrified wail tore through the playground. Penny had finally understood. The toy bomb, the masked men, the terror of it all, broke her little heart wide open. Tears streamed from her eyes as she clutched her dinosaur hat and scrambled from the sandbox, legs pumping wildly as she ran for the safety of the brightly colored play structure, the firehouse. "Penny, don't be scared. Daddy's here," the voice boomed, frantic, powerful, from the rooftop of the 3-story building beside the preschool. Scar and his men whipped their heads upward. There he stood, a man in a gray hoodie. Ethan, in his hands a massive homemade slingshot. At his feet, a plastic bin overflowing with strange ammunition. The duffel bag of toys had only been his opening move. Scar snarled, rage snapping him back to focus. "It's the useless dad. Forget him. Get the kid." He lunged again, ignoring the toy-strewn ground. His men followed, closing in on Penny's tiny, terrified frame. "You want my daughter?" Ethan roared from the rooftop. "Then you'll have to face her dad's arsenal of weapons of mass distraction." He moved with lightning speed, grabbing a fistful of objects, loading them into the launcher, and pulling back the elastic bands. Wave 1. Chicken Little Air Raid. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A dozen brightly colored rubber chickens launched into the air, open-mouthed and screaming. They wobbled through the sky in unnatural arcs before crashing down on the kidnappers. Squawk, scree, each one shrieked with a mind-shattering, high-pitched scream as it struck. Scar took a yellow chicken, square to the forehead. The sound drilled into his skull, his vision exploding with stars. His men staggered, clutching their ears, as the playground filled with the insane, piercing chorus of shrieking toys. Wave 2. The Rainbow Cowdrop Minefield. Hundreds of candy-coated chocolates blasted down like hail. They scattered across the rubberized ground, rolling like tiny ball bearings. "It's candy." One man cursed, just before his foot slid. The surface betrayed them. No grip, no balance. They slipped, slammed into each other, crashing like clumsy bowling pins. 4 hardened men, reduced to a pathetic, flailing heap. Wave 3, the final strike. Bubble tsunami. Ethan lifted his last weapon, a modified garden sprayer, and unleashed fury. Whoosh. Not water, not smoke, but bubbles. Tens of thousands of rainbow-colored bubbles. A storm of shimmering orbs poured downward, swallowing the kidnappers whole. They clung to clothes, smeared across eyes, filled mouths and noses. Every breath reeked of cheap soap and sweet fragrance. The ground turned slick beneath their feet. Each time they tried to rise, they fell again, slipping helplessly in the iridescent flood. "My eyes, I can't. It's in my mouth. Damn it, too slippery." For dangerous men, once predators, were now nothing but helpless. Fools engulfed, blinded and beaten by a father's love and an arsenal of toys. Their curses and struggles blended with the soft pop of bursting bubbles. "Why, Daddy, fight the monsters." Penny, who had managed to reach the little firehouse and slam the door shut, now peeked out through the window, her tear-streaked face pressed against the glass as she watched the scene of her father battling the bubble monsters. Her cries carried both fear and, strangely, a flicker of excitement. The teachers and children on the playground, frozen in shock by the bizarre confrontation, finally snapped into motion. The teachers began herding the children to safety, frantically slamming their palms against the school's emergency alarm. Whoa. Whoa. The piercing siren shrieked across the playground. On the roof, Ethan let the bubble sprayer fall from his hands, his eyes cold and unblinking as he watched the men floundering below. He pulled out his phone. 911. This is Starlight Academy. We have an active kidnapping attempt by 4 armed individuals at the rear playground. Suspects have been neutralized with civilian deterrence. Requesting immediate assistance. As he spoke, the wail of sirens grew louder, racing toward the school from the front entrance. The moment Claire had received the Nest alert, she activated the highest level emergency protocol. Not only had Ethan been notified instantly, but the system had already dispatched a high-priority alert with precise GPS coordinates directly to the nearest police precinct. "NYPD, don't move. Drop your weapons. hands on your head. Fully armed SWAT officers stormed the playground from both gates. Their rifles trained on the four men still slipping helplessly in the bubble-filled disaster zone, looked up at the wall of police officers surrounding him, then down at his bubble-soaked body and the scattered rubber chickens and candy littering the ground. A crushing wave of absurdity and despair washed over him. Their carefully planned kidnapping had been reduced to chaos and done by toys and bubbles. His face went slack. All fight drained from him. He slumped to the ground, surrendering as an officer cuffed his wrists. Ethan remained on the roof, expression hard, phone still in hand as he watched the scene below. When he finally descended to the playground and ran toward the little firehouse, the door creaked open. Penny launched herself out like a cannonball, crashing into his legs and wrapping them tightly in her tiny arms. Her body shook with sobs, her face streaked with tears and snot soaking into his pants. Wah, Daddy. Monsters. You fight the monsters. Bubbles. So many bubbles. I was scared. Ethan's heart broke and healed all at once. Every ounce of fear and tension dissolved into overwhelming love and relief. He dropped to his knees, sweeping his daughter into his arms, holding her, as if he'd never let go. His hand rubbed her trembling back, his voice soft and steady, a balm against her storm. It's okay, Penny. It's okay. The monsters all got a bath, and the police took them away. Daddy's here. Daddy scared them all away. You were so brave. Penny buried her face against his neck, breathing in the safe, familiar scent of her father. Her sobs slowly quieted. She lifted her tear-filled eyes, her long lashes clumped with wetness, and glanced from the pathetic, bubble-soaked men being hauled away in handcuffs back to her father. Her lip trembled. And then in a voice still thick with tears, she whispered, Daddy, the bubbles are fun. More bubbles. Ethan froze, then let out a choked laugh. He kissed her damp cheek. "'Kay, sweetheart. When we get home, Daddy, we'll make you the biggest bubbles in the whole world." The attempted kidnapping at Starlight Academy sent shockwaves through New York's business and political circles. Under interrogation, the four kidnappers broke almost instantly. They were hired muscle. Faced with the chloroform, the ropes, the doctored security footage, and a mountain of evidence, they confessed everything, spilling the name of the man who had hired them, Julian Vance. Witness testimony, physical evidence, and a clear money trail all led directly to Apex Global's newly appointed vice president. When the NYPD arrived at Apex Tower with a search and arrest warrant, Julian was pacing his office, unable to reach Scar, dread twisting in his stomach. The door burst open. Armed officers stormed inside, the steel of handcuffs glinting under. The office lights, Julian Vance Sue, are under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, endangering the welfare of a child, and corporate espionage. The detective's flat tone sealed his downfall. "No, you can't arrest me. I'm the VP of Apex Global. I'm Julian Vance," he shrieked, struggling in panic. The polished, untouchable executive veneer was gone. What remained was pathetic, desperate hysteria. He was dragged through the silent, open-plan office. Dozens of colleagues staring as he passed, faces frozen in shock, disgust, and grim satisfaction. Julian Vance was finished. His reputation, his career, his future destroyed in a single moment. And the scandal didn't end with him. The investigation followed the money trail straight to Horizon Tech, Apex's biggest rival. Their police uncovered damning evidence, bribed security, orchestrated espionage, and Horizon's direct role in bankrolling Julian's crimes. The day the news broke, Horizon Tech stock plummeted into oblivion. Its board was in chaos. Its public image shattered. Bankruptcy was inevitable. The elaborate conspiracy designed to destroy Claire's marriage and her company had backfired in the most spectacular and devastating way imaginable. 1 week later, the vast amphitheater-style conference room at Apex Global headquarters was packed. Every board member and senior executive was present. The atmosphere was heavy, solemn. On the massive screen behind the podium, a headline blared, "Horizon Tech's bankruptcy filing." This was no ordinary gathering, it was a special board meeting. to address the storm they had just weathered. Claire sat at the head of the table in a severe, custom-tailored black suit. Her hair was swept into a sleek, elegant chignon. Her face was impassive, her eyes calm. But within them burned a new strength, unyielding, unbreakable, forged in the fire of the crisis. She had just finished a concise summary of events. The fall of Horizon, the purging of traitors within. The room was silent. Every person sat ramrod straight, eyes fixed on Claire with a mix of awe and fear. Mr. Davis, the board member who once dared to question her about Ethan, stared at his hands, unable to meet her gaze. Ladies and gentlemen, Claire's cool. Voice cut through the silence, her gaze sweeping the room. Horizon is gone. Julian Vance is in prison. But the threat to Apex Global is not over. A ripple of unease stirred through the assembly. Claire's expression softened slightly as she turned toward the side entrance. Our greatest threats are the unpredictability of the market and the endless malice of our competitors. To survive, we need sharper instincts, more flexible strategies, and more unconventional tactics. Confused glances darted around the table. Claire allowed the tension to build before a knowing smile touched her lips. Therefore, I am proposing and officially appointing. The side door opened. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped in. Dressed in a navy blazer over an open-collared shirt, less the polished executive, more the confident innovator. In his arms, he carried a little girl in a pretty dress, clutching a single Lego brick. Her wide, curious eyes swept the room full of suits, utterly unafraid. It was Ethan and Penny. Ethan walked calmly to Claire's side, his smile warm, his eyes bright with assurance, a man both ordinary and extraordinary. Claire reached out, linking her arm through his, and faced the room again. Her voice carried like a royal decree. Mr. Ethan Crawford, as our newly created Director of Strategic Crisis Management, he will have full authority over all operations. Concerning immediate and future threats to this company's security and public image, the room erupted in disbelief. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Director of Strategic Crisis Management, Ethan Crawford. The CEO's husband? The stay-at-home dad? Stunned eyes darted between Ethan and Claire, expressions tangled in shock, confusion, even outrage. But Claire ignored the noise. She looked at Ethan with undisguised pride and trust. Perhaps you are not yet familiar with his work, she continued. That's fine. She paused, her sharp, playful smile slicing through the tension. You only need to remember one thing. 1 week ago, with a bag of old toys, a handful of candy, and a super soaker filled with bubble solution, he neutralized a professional kidnapping attempt against this company in under 5 minutes with 0 casualties. An action which, incidentally, led directly to the collapse of our chief competitor. Words detonated like a bomb. Silence fell, so absolute it was. Suffocating. Toys. Candy. Bubble solution. Kidnapping thwarted. A rival empire destroyed. It sounded absurd. Impossible. Yet Claire delivered it with such calm conviction that it became undeniable truth. Board members sat frozen, mouths half open. Executives looked like statues, struggling to comprehend the sheer audacity of what they had heard. And then their gazes shifted to Ethan. Skepticism melted into shock, and shock into something stranger. A profound, reluctant reverence. What kind of man was this? Ethan met their stares with a steady, almost amused calm. He gave Penny a little bounce in his arms. Right on cue, she lifted her Lego brick high and declared in her clear, high-pitched voice, "Daddy's the best. He beat the bubble monsters." She punctuated her words with a triumphant little punch in the air. The childish voice echoed through the chamber like a spell breaking. Somewhere in the back, a laugh escaped. Then another and another, until the entire room was rippling with incredulous, half-disbelieving laughter. It was laughter laced with relief, disbelief, and a dawning admiration. Toys had defeated guns. Bubbles had crushed a conspiracy. Unassuming man had saved not only his family but the entire empire of Apex Global. Claire watched the shifting expressions across the table, her eyes alight with deep satisfaction. She turned, and in front of the entire board and senior management, right in the middle of the confused chatter, she rose onto her toes and pressed a firm kiss against Ethan's cheek. Smack. The sound wasn't loud, but it was enough to change everything. The laughter and murmurs evaporated in an instant. Silence fell. Every single pair of eyes in the room widened in shock. The CEO, the Ice Queen herself, had just kissed her husband in public. Ethan blinked, clearly caught off guard. By the gesture, faint blush crept up his neck, betraying the calm exterior he always tried to maintain. In his arms, Penny giggled, covering her mouth with her tiny hand, delighted by the scene. Claire, however, carried on as if nothing unusual had happened. She straightened, her professional composure returning in full force, though the smile that flickered in her eyes like a hidden sunbeam betrayed her heart. She cleared her throat and addressed the room with calm, unshakable authority. That will be all. Meeting adjourned. With that, she took Ethan's arm in one hand and Penny's small fingers in the other. Together, the three of them walked toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of stunned, awestruck faces. Ethan, holding his daughter close, felt the strength of his wife at his side and the warmth of his child in his arms. He glanced toward Claire. Her cool, clear eyes now shimmered with a universe of stars. And in that galaxy, he was the only thing reflected. He smiled softly and leaned closer, his voice low, meant only for her. So, Madame CEO, about my new position, think I could negotiate a raise? In the form of barbecue ribs tonight? Claire's lips curved into a radiant smile, the starlight, in her eyes glittering with warmth, approved Mr. Director of Crisis Management. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting their three shadows long across the floor. Intertwined, inseparable, a fortress built not of walls or steel, but of love, strength, and the beautiful, chaotic happiness of home.